But then when you start sleeping, they go, and then stage 2, and then stage 3, and then stage 4. So there's this scientist, I don't know his name, who visited a tribe, and he was talking about insomnia with them, that in the Western world we have problems sleeping, or the modern human being sometimes has problems sleeping. And when he said this, the tribe's people started laughing. They said, trouble sleeping? How is that even possible? They had never even stumbled upon such a thing. What does this tell us? This tells us that healthy human beings living in nature have no problem sleeping. This is something modern. This is something that shouldn't exist. The problem is that we've changed our environment, and now the conditions for correct sleep aren't there anymore. Remember, there's no dishonesty in the title. If you do these things that I'm going to mention in this video, you're going to sleep better than 99.99% of humans in modern society. I promise you. What is sleep? Sleep is mostly an unconscious state where you free up a lot of energy. It is mostly that because, of course, you've got REM sleep. There's non-REM sleep and there's REM sleep. And we're going to look at both of those because, funnily enough, REM sleep, which is, the type of sleep where your body goes absolutely bonkers, honestly speaking. It's a wild party when you're in REM sleep, biologically speaking, is absolutely needed. It has biological functions. But it's mostly a state where your body repairs itself, and so it is anabolic. And I realize that you might not know what anabolic is. Anabolic is building up, building tissue. It is a state where you build tissue. You use energy to build tissue. A catabolic state is what happens when you starve or you fast. Basically the same thing, depends on how you look at it. You break down the body for different purposes. So sleep is a state where you build up. And that is why we say that most of the healing that we do occurs when we sleep. Because sleep is the most anabolic state we can be in. So your body has terms and conditions, and one of the conditions is that you need to sleep. You need this. If you mess up anything when it comes to your sleep, you'll experience big consequences because your body relies on sleep to function the way it does. If you want to do something that's extremely unhealthy for you, mess up your sleep. That is not something that you can sacrifice, but unfortunately, people in modern society think that they can sacrifice sleep. People think that it's alright to wake up at 5 when you really can't wake up at 5. People think that you can pull all-nighters. People think that you can do shift work, that you can do night work. You can't. You absolutely can't. You'll age much faster and you'll feel like shit. Trust me. You can't sacrifice sleep. It is impossible. And if you do so, you'll suffer the consequences. I want you to equate less sleep or the sacrifice of sleep with eating junk food. Even if you're eating the best diet in the world, if you're not sleeping well, if you're pulling all-nighters, you're destroying yourself. Because the thing is, if you sleep less, you're worsening your organ function, you're going to digest food worse, you're going to absorb less food, your blood circulation is going to be worse, your brain is going to be worse, it's going to require more energy to function in the same way, and basically, you're going to feel like shit, okay? You can't sacrifice sleep. You have to prioritize it, okay? People who oppose this way of thinking think that if they sleep 6 hours every night, they live 75% of their lives, or they're conscious 75% of their lives. They only sleep 25% of their life. While if they sleep 8 hours every night, they're only conscious for 66% of their life. And so they think that they'll live more if they sleep less. Well, here's the thing. 2 hours of less sleep than you actually need, if that's the case. Some people might only need 6 hours, but usually that's a very healthy human being. And I'm willing to bet that you're not one of these people. I'm willing to bet that you need more sleep than this. But if you are one of these people who needs more sleep, if you sacrifice these 2 hours, you'll be affected for the rest of the day. And you'll also affect the next night. So what you're doing is you're sleeping 2 less hours and you're getting this extra percentage of being conscious. But the thing is, you're sacrificing the time in which you are conscious. Would you rather sleep 12 hours and then feel amazing for the next 12 hours and then, sleep again, make that your sleep cycle where you sleep 50% of your life? Or would you rather sleep for 25% of your life, so 6 hours, and then feel like absolute garbage. Obviously, you would take the 12 hours of sleep, right? Well, then apply that to the 6 versus 8 hours. Seriously, you're not sleeping your life away. You're doing something that your body requires. Again, your body has terms and conditions, and one of the conditions is you need to sleep. The next thing about sleep, which I want you to think about, is that sleep requires certain nutrients. It requires certain substances that you need to produce, more so when you're asleep than when you're awake, one of them being acetylcholine as an example. So here's the thing. If you eat a nutrient-rich diet, you won't have any problems when it comes to this. If you eat junk food, your body won't be able to sleep correctly because, again, you need to produce certain things. You need to be able to do certain things when you're in that state. If you don't meet those requirements, you'll sleep worse. So what I'm saying is, if you're a healthy human being, you'll sleep better. You'll be more efficient. You'll have more efficient cells. You'll have more things to work with, really. If you're an unhealthy human being, you won't be able to do as well in that state. So the healthier you are, the better you will sleep and the better you will utilize the time that you're sleeping in. Now let's talk about the stages of sleep. So you've got rapid eye movement sleep, REM sleep, and non-rapid eye movement sleep, non-REM sleep. If we want to make it easy, we can say that REM sleep is dreamy, shit show sleep, basically, and non-REM sleep is deep sleep. Again, the thing with non-REM sleep is that you've got 4 different stages. You've got stage 1, stage 2, and then you go deeper and deeper into stage 3, and then stage 4. And stage 3 and 4 of non-REM sleep are deep sleep. That's what scientists usually characterize as deep sleep. And what happens over here is that your brain waves throughout these stages become slower and slower and slower. So each second, if you were to record your brain waves when you're awake, they go brrr, but then when you start sleeping, they go brrr, and then stage 2 brrr, and then stage 3 brrr, and then stage 4 brrr. You know how we associate sleep with healing and feeling rested and, the body going through all of these important processes? That usually happens during deep sleep. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because scientists say that as we age, our deep sleep gets worse. So we're unable to stay in stage 3 and 4 for long periods of time. And they say that teenagers and young adults are very good at this, and then when the adults, become a little bit bigger, they get really bad at this. This is not a product of aging, or this is my hypothesis at least, this is my theory. This is not a product of aging. This is a product of being unhealthy. Okay, I think that if you were to look at very healthy people and you look at their deep sleep won't be impaired if you compare their teenage years to their adult years. Of course, it's going to get worse and worse and worse, but it's not going to decline in the way that we see when we study people who are, random people in modern society who don't really take care of their health. Okay, so that was deep sleep. Let's look at dreamy sleep, which is where your eyes rapidly move. Now, why is that? Well, that's not the only thing that happens. Another thing that happens is that your body becomes paralyzed. If you're in REM sleep, your body is paralyzed. And do you know why that is? Do you know why your eyes move? Well, it's basically the same reason, really. Both of these things happen because you're dreaming. So you're paralyzed because if you weren't paralyzed, you'd actually start moving. People who, sleepwalk are people who can't really paralyze their body. They lack that ability during REM sleep. So they start moving because the moving is something that they think they're doing in the dream. Your eyes aren't paralyzed, and you're looking around in the dream, which means that your eyes are going to look around in your, you could say, physical body. So that's why they call it rapid eye movement, because that's literally what you're doing. Now, when I was doing research on REM sleep, I started laughing a lot, because REM sleep is essentially a shit show, and that's why I called it a shit show earlier. And this is why. So the thing is, there's something called homeostasis. It's a concept which says that whatever happens to your body tries to, fight against that force. So if it becomes cold, your body is going to heat itself up to maintain the correct cellular environment. If it becomes hot, your body will try to cool down itself. Your body always reacts to whatever is happening. And what happens during REM sleep is, homeostasis, which is literally what your body's always trying to do. That's literally why you breathe, that's literally why you eat, goes out of the window. Your breathing patterns go away. You're still breathing, by the way, but your breathing becomes erratic. Your heartbeat suddenly goes really high, then it goes low. Your temperature is thrown off the roof. Your body just goes crazy. And we don't know why. That's the thing. And you know what's really, really interesting? If you deprive people of REM sleep, they go crazy in their waking life. Or they don't go crazy in that way, but it impairs them. It impairs them a lot. If you do this with rats, if you impair the REM sleep in rats, they die within 4 to 6 weeks. What's interesting is that there's also something called REM rebound. So what happens is, if you inhibit REM sleep in humans by giving them certain medications, if you suddenly remove these inhibitions, these medications, the body naturally compensates by sleeping in more REM, so to speak. You get more REM the night after. It compensates for it, which means that it senses that there's a lack of REM. There's some important process that hasn't happened enough, and now it needs to compensate for it. So obviously, because of this, because of REM rebound, scientists have concluded that obviously REM sleep is very beneficial and it is needed for proper biological function. So whenever you look at REM and non-REM sleep, yes, one is dreamy and seems to be stupid and the other one seems to be really nice, but REM sleep is clearly very important. Next, we're going to talk about something very, very important. The circadian clock, the circadian rhythm. So what is this? Circadian means approximately repeating every 24 hours. And clock is clock, the management of time, a way to view time. So your body's way of dealing with time is through its circadian clock. And interestingly enough, almost every single cell inside of your body has a circadian clock. Every single cell in your body knows what time it is. Sort of. This depends on external stimuli. So what does this mean? This means that the way your body knows the time is through what you are exposed to. So in a moment, we're going to talk about behavioral tools. So things you need to expose yourself to manipulate circadian hormones. So what we're trying to do is optimizing the circadian clock. And the way we do this is by optimizing these two hormones, making sure that they spike at different times, at optimal times. What are these two hormones? Cortisol and melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. As the day goes by or goes on, it increases. And you should have a good amount of it when you're going to sleep. And then in the morning or when you're awake, you should have high cortisol levels. Okay, not chronically high cortisol levels because that's associated with stress, but you should have fairly good cortisol levels because that's associated with metabolism, with creating energy, with being awake. So we're going to do different things that will optimize cortisol and melatonin. All we're trying to do is optimize cortisol and melatonin. And we do this through behavioral tools. Of course, these things that I'm going to talk about have other effects. It's not just about sleep, it's about your overall health. Many of these things are very healthy. If you prioritize and you optimize your circadian clock, you get better sleep. If you mess up your circadian clock, if you do the opposite of what I say in this next section, you're going to sleep bad and you're going to have worse health outcomes. Now let me give credit where credit is due when it comes to the behavioral section and when it comes to the supplement stack, especially the supplement stack. All that information was obtained through Andrew Huberman. He makes amazing videos. Not everything is related to health. I don't agree with everything, but when it comes to these natural biological things, I 100% agree with him because they're very, very obvious to me. So go and watch those if you want to go in depth on those things, but I'm going to, of course, summarize and mention all of the things he talks about. I'm even going to give my opinion on some of the things. As an example, I'm against caffeine, he's not against caffeine. There are 4 main things, main factors from a behavioral standpoint that affect your sleep. You've got light, temperature, movement, and eating patterns. And we're going to go through all of the things that you should do to optimize all of these factors. Sunlight viewing is the first thing. In the morning, to get the correct cortisol response, you need to view a bright light. And so what you do is, within the first hour of waking, you go out and you point yourself in the direction of the sun. You don't close your eyelids and you don't look directly at the sun, but you look below it or to the side or to the left. You know, you look at it, but you don't look in a way where it hurts. You should just know that you're getting a bunch of light in your eyes. If it's, you know, not cloudy, you can do 10 minutes. Ideally, 30 minutes is best, but do 10 minutes. That's usually what I do even. If the sky is very overcast, if it's very cloudy, look at the sky. It's still very bright, by the way. If you look at the sky when it's very cloudy, it's still very bright. You need to get more time in that condition then, but do it anyway. Okay, look up at the sky, look at approximately where the sun is, it doesn't matter. As long as you get that bright light, you'll get the correct cortisol response. If it's super, you know, cloudy, you'll need more time. Go for a walk, 30 to 60 minutes, and then you'll get the response. As you can imagine, doing sunlight viewing within the first hour of waking up puts an anchor in your circadian clock, so your body really knows what time it is. If you want to put another anchor in the circadian clock for optimal circadian clock and circadian rhythm, you should view the sunset. So go out approximately when the sun is going to go down, and then do exactly what you did in the morning. And voila, now you've put another anchor into the circadian clock and you'll sleep better. Now I think you'll find this next part really interesting. So if you don't know, blue light is associated with wakefulness because the sun emits blue light in the morning, and then red light is associated with sleepiness and melatonin because red light is emitted by the sun in the evening. So being exposed to blue light from computers or artificial lights basically kills your melatonin and increases your cortisol. So you'll sleep worse because you're messing up your circadian clock. You're not telling your body what time it is, or you're telling it that it's morning when in fact it is noon, it is night. So what you can do is you can wear red light blocking glasses, which make everything red. They block 100% of all blue light and 100% of all green light if you've got good ones. And that basically leaves you with red. So everything you look at is red. And there's a problem with these. Yes, they block out blue light, and that's a very good thing. But the thing that's even more important than blue light is the light strength. Okay? So if it's very bright and you're wearing these glasses, it's going to help because it's going to make it less bright. But still, you haven't addressed the fact that you need darkness. Okay, the primary thing that drives you to want to sleep is not blue or red light, it's darkness. So when the sun goes down, make sure that you're in a dark environment. Make sure that any light you have on is very dim and that it's on the warmer side. Usually the more blue light you have, the more you're going to spike cortisol. So that's still important, but the most important thing is how light or dark it is. So you can't just wear blue light blocking glasses and have extremely strong lights. You can't just have extremely strong red lights. That's not going to work. You need to have a dark environment still. That was light. Those were the light hacks. Now we're going to talk about temperature. So high body temperature or warmth is associated with being awake, and a drop in body temperature is associated with going to sleep. So the reason you wake up, according to Andrew Huberman, is because your body temperature increases until it reaches a certain point where you just wake up, because it's at the point where, you know, it should be when you're awake. It reaches that point and then you wake up. That's basically what happens. So if you get very warm during the night, that's usually a reason as to why you wake up during the night, because you got warm. If you don't get warm, you might not wake up if you have that kind of problem. So temperature is just like light. If you manipulate your body temperature, you'll tell your body what time it is. So what do we do here? In the morning, do cold exposure, because if you do cold exposure, your body will heat itself up. So you'll raise your body temperature and you'll get that cortisol spike. Don't do ice baths. I'm against ice baths and prolonged cold exposure, because it just stresses out your body unnecessarily. You use up too many nutrients. But if you, at the end of your shower, just turn it to cold, not unnecessarily cold, just a little bit cold, so that you feel it, and you do that for a minute or so, that's enough really. You don't need more than that. And then you exit the shower feeling a little bit cold, and then your body's going to heat itself up. Now in the evening, it's the opposite. You're trying to cool yourself down. So what you do is hot exposure. So if you do a sauna or you take a hot shower, that's going to help you sleep because it's going to cool you down. Yes, it might seem like, well, it's hot, so it's heating up my body. And that is true, but what happens is, listen closely, homeostasis. If you've got something hot outside that's hotter than your body, well, then your body has to cool itself down because this thing outside is heating your cells up. So your cells have to create less energy. So then if you suddenly remove this thing, well, your cells are still, trying to create less energy. So anything hot will relax you because your body has to use less energy. So that will help you sleep better. That's what I do. I take a hot shower. Now this next thing is extremely logical. Movement is one of the things that sets and controls your circadian clock. So in the morning you should move, because the thing is, cortisol is something that signals to your body that it should create energy, and you need energy to move because movement is energy. Kinetic energy is movement. Same thing really. And in the evening you should move less. Okay, because if you move, you'll increase your stress hormones. If you exercise at night, that will increase your stress hormones and you'll sleep worse because your body thinks that it's daytime. So all the gym bros who work out at night, that's retarded because you're telling your body that it's daytime when in fact it is in the evening or at night even. An important thing to realize is that this isn't just related to movement. This is related to anything that increases your energy output. So if you look at your brain, if you're playing a chess game, well, then you're using your brain more. If you're doing that, then you're using up more energy. And anything that makes you use up more energy is associated with being awake. Anything that makes you use less energy is associated with being asleep or going toward being more tired so that you can fall asleep. So you should really practice some kind of thing that makes you think less, that makes sure that your emotions aren't creating unnecessary stress hormones. Don't just think about it as movement. Think about it as movement of the mental state and movement of the body itself. The next thing is your eating schedule. So if your body senses that you're eating at a certain time, your body's going to want you to eat at that time. And it's also going to associate that timing of the meal with wherever you are in the circadian clock. So what I'm saying is that if you eat before going to bed and you do that for a while, you'll get sleepy after eating. So there's not necessarily a problem with eating as you're going to sleep, because the thing is, there are other effects that happen when you eat that might aid in sleep. So as an example, more energy is going to go toward the digestive system, and so you're going to have less energy to move around and this and that. So that's why you don't generally see people going for a run after eating. They generally sit down or they go to sleep even. So again, there's no problem with eating before going to bed, as an example. What I'm trying to get to is that eating consistently will provide your body with an anchor in the circadian clock. While if you eat inconsistently, if you eat meals at different times every day, so one day you'll eat lunch at 1 p.m., the other day you eat lunch at 4 p.m., and you do that consistently, well, then your body will get a little bit confused. And it also aids the digestive system to know when you're going to eat. That's why, as an example, if you were to eat a meat meal at 4 o'clock every single day, then before you eat that meal, your body will already be producing hydrochloric acid. Now we move on to nutrition, and when it comes to nutrition, there are a few things that are very good to know. The first one is that tryptophan is the amino acid that is needed to create melatonin. And so if you're not getting enough protein, or if you're eating a low protein diet, then you're going to have problems creating melatonin. You need to get enough tryptophan, and you get tryptophan through, again, protein. And the most bioavailable form of protein is the protein found in meat and animal products in general. So as long as you include animal products in your diet, you won't have any issues, because it's not a huge amount of tryptophan that you need really. It's just, your body will tell you to eat protein when you're hungry. You'll have a certain amount of protein that you'll want to eat. And if you meet that requirement and you're not starving for protein, then you're going to be all right. The next nutrition-related thing is caffeine. So the thing with caffeine is it actually acts through a mechanism that directly controls sleep. So in the morning, you have low adenosine levels. And as the day goes on, you build up more and more adenosine in your system. And the more adenosine you've got, the more sleep you're going to feel. And then in the morning, you've cleared out all of the adenosine and you have low adenosine levels. And so if you have low adenosine levels, you're going to feel energized. So the thing with caffeine is it binds to the receptor that adenosine is supposed to be, let's say, registered at. And so what happens is you get more energy because you're manipulating adenosine in a favorable way from a energy perspective. So your body thinks that it should create more energy than it actually wants to create because your body is very intelligent. It knows that it needs to allocate energy here and there and there. If you mess up the signaling, you're forcing it to do something else because you're imposing your will on it. Things that manipulate the body in such a way are called drugs. Paracetamol is the same way. Any prescription drug is the same way. Even statins, cholesterol blockers, they block a certain enzyme that creates cholesterol. So with drugs, you always have something that is coming in and disrupting a certain system so that you can get a desired effect. And this is obviously stupid, and it's always unhealthy, and you should never do it. And that's why I'm against caffeine, because your body knows exactly how much energy it should be creating and allocating to certain organs and certain systems. And if you're going in there and saying, no, body, I want you to produce more energy, you're not understanding that your body has more important things to do. So as an example, if your body was trying to allocate more energy toward clearing something out of your lymphatic system, now suddenly it needs to create more energy for you to create kinetic energy, for you to feel more alert, when it really didn't want to do that. It had something else that was more important to do. If it didn't have that important thing that it was doing, then you'd already feel the effects of caffeine without taking any caffeine. That's what I'm trying to get at. If you have energy problems, you have a sleep problem, or you have a nutrition problem, or you have a general health problem. Again, it's not something specific, it's that anything that's unhealthy is going to mess up your energy because your body has to allocate energy toward fixing that unhealthy thing. So never take caffeine, because caffeine is very stupid if you already understand that you've got an underlying problem that you need to fix. Another drug that you really should be avoiding is ethanol, or as they call it, alcohol. Because the thing is, ethanol is toxic and your body has to deal with it somehow. It can't just pee it out because it's going to burn everything on its way out. That's what I'm trying to say. So the liver turns it into acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is basically the thing that is toxic, that gets you the effects of alcohol. And the effects of alcohol, getting drunk, is just being poisoned. That's the effect that you get from being poisoned, because your nervous system is becoming more dysfunctional. And if your body thinks that it's getting poisoned, what do you think is going to happen to your normal bodily functions? Your cells that have a circadian clock. That's going to go to hell. So don't drink any alcohol, because it's been shown to really, really disrupt sleep. The next nutrition related thing is related to carbohydrates, actually, because the thing is, you need carbohydrates, or glucose to be more specific, to create serotonin, and the body uses serotonin to create melatonin. So if you have a carbohydrate deficiency, you're not going to create enough melatonin. And what I'm saying here is that if you're one of these guys who is very strict zero carb and you don't want any carbs, I'm not telling you to eat 100 grams of carbs. All I'm saying is that eat one low carb fruit every day, or two, like 2 tomatoes, and if you really can't eat tomatoes, then drink some carrot juice or something, organic, unprocessed. It can be anything, really, anything, just a little bit of starch, something, just something, so that you don't get this problem, so that your body doesn't have to rely on creating glucose for every single thing your body needs for glucose. As an example, did you know that cholesterol itself is synthesized from glucose? You get cholesterol from glucose, and the process is astounding. There are so many steps for glucose to become cholesterol. But anyway, you get cholesterol from glucose. Your body uses glucose for many things. So you need to eat glucose. The problem is, if you eat too much glucose, you're going to spike your blood sugar and you're going to create glycation. But there's a sweet spot where you're getting everything. And again, if you're eating too little carbs, you won't get any melatonin, or you'll have melatonin problems. Zero carb diets also seem to increase cortisol. So your body is sort of put in a stressful situation when it doesn't get any carbohydrates whatsoever. And that's why people who do very prolonged fasts might have problems sleeping, because they're in this exact state where their stress hormones are elevated so that they can have enough energy to hunt. Maybe that's the sort of function of getting elevated stress hormones when you don't eat. It makes sort of sense. If you don't have any food, you need to find food. So your body forces you to find food, basically. If you're eating, then your body's going to rest. But the basic thing when it comes to nutrition and sleep is that your body wants to feel relaxed. It wants to feel like, I don't have to do anything specific. I just have to do the normal things. There aren't any big things to deal with. So a big thing to deal with would be a nutrition deficiency or pollution, some poison in your body. And again, the food that you eat can be poison because it's not food if it's from McDonald's, as an example. So limit pollution, limit junk food, because junk food and pollution are the same thing in my world. Should be the same thing in your world. Should be a no-go zone. And increase the amount of nutrients that you eat, because again, if you don't get enough nutrients, your body won't be able to perform its natural functions. And so if it can't perform its natural functions, it can't perform sleep in an adequate manner. We need to talk about a very specific scenario where, let's say you do everything that I say in this video. You do the behavioral tools, you have a perfect sleep environment, which we're going to talk about, and your nutrition is perfect. And you have no holes in, the things you do for health, really. But you still can't sleep for some reason. And that is where supplements come in. So yes, I'm against supplements. Obviously, you might know this. I've made a video about veganism that explains supplements in very good detail. I urge you to watch that video because it's very helpful if you want to understand supplements on a deep level. But here's the thing, sleeping is more important than the negatives of supplements. I'd rather take supplements and be able to sleep than not be able to sleep and not take supplements, honestly speaking. So, if you can't sleep and you're doing everything correctly, then you can take these three things. And this is I learned this from Andrew Huberman. Again, I'm linking his videos down below. He was the one who taught me this. The supplements are magnesium threonate, theanine, and apigenin. And apigenin is something that is found in plants. Theanine is something that is found in green tea and other plants, really. And magnesium is, of course, a mineral. So here's the amount and also when you should take them. You've got 145 milligrams of magnesium, then 50 milligrams of apigenin, and then 100 to 400 milligrams of theanine, 1 hour before bed. And the thing is, and Andrew also says this in his video, magnesium can cause digestive issues, digestive discomfort. So if it does that, you can skip it and just take apigenin and theanine. Again, these supplements are a last resort. Even Andrew says this, that if you do everything correctly and you sleep well, you don't have to take these supplements. But if you feel like you're still not sleeping well, you can't really fall asleep, then experiment with these and try to find a high quality source that hasn't mixed in a bunch of bullshit. Now here's a really big killer. Mental health or bad mental health, feeling stressed, overthinking, being emotionally upset. Why? Because all of these things promote cortisol, and if you promote cortisol, your body's going to think that you should be awake. You're not going to get the melatonin that you want, you're going to get stress. Again, stress equals cortisol and adrenaline and this and that. Depends on which kind of stress it is, really. Depends on the context. So here's the thing. First of all, realize that there's not a problem with your circumstances, there's a problem with you, how you handle yourself internally. Because your inner state can only be affected by you. You have systems for interpreting the world, and you can change these systems if you really work on it. And sometimes you can just drop things immediately. The biggest problem you have, in this case, is thinking. Thinking happens to you. You don't think, thinking happens to you. You can't switch it off. I can switch it off because I've practiced this. I'm at a point where I can switch off my thinking if I want. And I can catch myself very often if I do happen to think unnecessarily without being aware of me thinking. If I am in a thinking state where I'm creating a scenario in my mind like you do, or where I'm talking to myself. I catch myself doing that. So it's not really the same thing, really. You have to master that if you want to master sleep. Because if you go around thinking like a monkey, then you will sleep like a monkey. That's what I'm trying to say. Not that monkeys sleep in a bad manner, they probably sleep better than most human beings. Now, here's the thing. Meditate, okay? If you want to stop thinking, you have to actively practice not thinking. So don't just meditate formally, because when you do formal meditation, then you can really focus on actually practicing. Do it everywhere. When you take a walk, especially if you take a walk, if you're on the subway, wherever you are really, practice not thinking. So here's the thing really, no one taught you how to deal with emotions, with thoughts, no one taught you about what you are, how you work, how your entire life and your mental emotional patterns and everything that's dear to you is actually formed, and how it works, how your entire internal world works. And if you have problems sleeping and it's because of your life circumstances, then you really need to understand your internal world, because that is what dictates how happy you are as a human being. It's not money and this and that. It's your internal world, really, if you want to call it an internal world. In reality, there's nothing there. Whenever you're not constructing anything, there's nothing there. If you remove emotions and thoughts, which you can't do right now, there's nothing there. There's just what you're seeing, because the entire internal world just shuts off. And if it does shut off, you'll sleep perfectly, because then there's nothing distracting your body from wanting to sleep. Your brain waves automatically go lower and lower as you meditate. And so you're automatically going to meditate if you reach that state. And that's what we call meditation. Essentially, meditation is just a word. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that you're not doing that we call meditation, really. And if you already have read The Power of Now, then read The Book of Not Knowing by Peter Ralston, because Eckhart Tolle doesn't talk about the truth. Peter Ralston talks about the truth. Another thing is, don't stimulate yourself before bed. And I'm not really talking about masturbation or anything like that, because it might sound like that. What I mean is, don't talk too much. Okay, don't watch too many aggressive things. You can watch light things like YouTube videos if you want. You can listen to that, but don't watch a scary movie or something that has a lot of action or something that really triggers your emotions. And if we look at the things that really trigger our emotions or our thought patterns, usually other people do that. So if you live with people, try to keep out of anything or any discussion or any conversation that might be too thought engaging. Try to wind it down, and we're going to talk about this later. Alright, we've talked about behavioral tools, we've talked about what sleep is, we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about mental health and stress. Now we're going to talk about your sleep environment, where you actually sleep and how to optimize that. The first thing that comes to mind is EMF. Now this is a very little talked about topic in modern society. This is not something that we really talk about. And EMF is basically three things. You've got the electric field that is emitted by things, you've got the magnetic field that is emitted by things, and you've got radio frequency. And if you buy an EMF meter, usually a good one, will measure all of these three. And if you want to know how EMF affects you, then watch this video. It's entirely biological, it's entirely scientific. Again, I can link an article down below if you want to really understand the effects of EMF and why it is actually dangerous, so that when Elon Musk tells you that cell phone isn't dangerous, you actually have the science, while he does not. Again, if he had a discussion with me, he'd change his mind. So here's what I recommend that you do. First of all, make sure the obvious things are out of the way. Make sure that your phone is on airplane mode. Make sure that it's not on Wi-Fi, so you can't have Wi-Fi in airplane mode. It needs to be airplane mode only. And then put it far away from you. So even if it's on airplane mode, it's going to emit these things. In lower amounts, of course, but it's still going to be bad. So put it far away from you. I put it 3 meters away from me. I have my computer desk, and then I sleep on the floor, and they're on opposite sides of the room, so I don't really get anything. If you have any obvious electronics in your room that are on, turn them off. If your computer is on, turn it off. Make sure that even if you have this long thing where you put all the things in, the plugs in, and you can switch off and on the electricity, make sure that that's off. Make sure that any light is off. Make sure that everything is off, basically. so that you don't have any unnecessary electric fields in your room. Now, if you're a real Chad and you want to optimize everything, then you need to buy an EMF meter so that you can understand the magnetic field, the electric field, and the radio frequency that are affecting your sleep environment, if that's the case. If you check and the EMF levels are low, then great. You don't have to do anything specific to your sleep environment from that perspective. You can just check the rest of your house. And you can check certain places that you're at. So the subway, as an example, you can check certain restaurants that you go to. And I don't advocate for restaurants. I advocate for buying your own food and preparing it yourself, because you can't trust anyone. If it's high, you can build a Faraday cage. And a Faraday cage is a construction that blocks all electromagnetic fields. And also radio frequency, I'm pretty sure. So what it is a enclosed space made of metal, like a metal cage. So if you take aluminum mesh and you take something that is, you know, a cube, basically, around your bed or the place you sleep at, because that could be the floor, and you put these aluminum mesh thingies on top of this cube so everything is covered from all directions, everything needs to be covered, you can't leave the bottom out, then you're going to have an environment which is completely EMF free. And you can even check with your EMF meter. Even if you have your phone on max strength 5G outside, there's going to be nothing inside of the actual Faraday cage, which means that this is a very, very good solution for protecting yourself against EMF. If you don't want to do that, you can wear EMF protective clothing. And what this is you've got aluminum inside of the clothes. So what happens is it acts as a Faraday cage, but it's not blocked from every angle, really. If you wear a t-shirt, this will be exposed and your head will be exposed, but all of your internal organs, your entire digestive system, as an example, and your heart and your lungs. The next thing is earthing or grounding. And grounding or earthing is basically when you touch the earth and you get the surface electrons of the earth. You're electrically conductive, and the earth is also electrically conductive, and you can utilize the electrons in the ground, you can suck them up, and they can perform bodily functions. Because in reality, if you look at how enzymes and vitamins and whatever it can be inside of your body, if you look at how they work, in many cases they donate electrons. That is what vitamin C does. It donates electrons, if I'm not mistaken. So getting electrons from the ground is basically getting what these molecules do for free, without getting the molecule itself, without having to pass through the digestive system. So as you can see, this is a very important part of our environment, which I talk about in my book too. I put all the science over there. I'll even link the article down below that I've put in my book, really. But that's not a major part of my book, so it doesn't really matter. I'll give you that for free. Now, I'm not just telling you this so that you can do earthing for 1 hour a day to improve sleep, and of course that would improve your sleep, but what I'm talking about here is buying an earthing mat, a grounding mat, so that you can do it throughout the entire night, so that you can get electrons throughout the entire night. And this does seem to help people. When studies have been done on people who sleep on grounding mats, they have significantly improved their sleep by sleeping on grounding mats or earthing mats. Doesn't matter really. And again, it's in the same article that I'll link down below, because they present a bunch of studies. It's really a review article. Here's something that you won't find many people talking about, and it is sleeping on the floor. Now, this is something that I've done for 5 years, and I feel like it has improved my sleep tremendously. Not only that, I used to have neck pain. I used to get many strained necks. So you know when you can't turn your neck because it hurts, because the muscle just spasms. I used to get that a lot. I barely even get that anymore. And that's also because I don't sleep on a pillow. I believe it's better for your face. I believe it's better for your teeth. Again, your body's more aligned because there's no dip. Certain parts of your body are heavier than others, especially if you're a woman with a big ass. So the thing is, if you sleep on the floor, your ass won't dip down and your spine won't go like this. It will keep being straight. And that's one of the biggest benefits, really, because if your spine is straight and everything is aligned, then you'll have better blood circulation, and therefore your body is going to be more efficient. And if it's more efficient, then you're going to sleep better, because it's going to be able to use less energy. Again, I've made an entire video showing my setup and why I do this and that, and talking about the lymphatic system, so go check it out if you're interested. It's a very good video that isn't very popular on my channel because people don't really care about these things. Now here's something that most people haven't thought about, and I don't think you have thought about this either. You might have, but I don't think you have. If you sleep on something that is made of polyester, like a duvet, not the duvet cover, that's usually made of cotton, but the duvet itself, you're going to be breathing in polyester. You're going to be breathing in plastic, and that will, if you're a man, lower your testosterone levels. As an example, if you care about that, then remove everything that's polyester from your vicinity, especially your sleep environment, because you're breathing that in for 6 to 9 hours every night. You can't be doing that. So make sure your sleep environment is composed of leather or cowhide, or, because some people sleep on that. I think that I'll sleep on that in the future when I move out. Or wool, or linen, or cotton. Okay, make sure that it's composed of completely natural materials, because when you breathe those in, they're not going to cause any problems, really. The next two things are obvious. Obviously, make sure that light doesn't come into your eyes when you're sleeping, because light can wake you up. So make sure that your room is dark. You can do two things for this. One doesn't have to do with the room, really. The first thing is blackout curtains. Make sure that you invest in blackout curtains and make sure that there are no gaps, or at least that the room is very, very dark. The second thing is just wear something on your eyes. You don't need to do both, just do one of them. Make sure that light doesn't come into your eyes. And if you're afraid of the dark and you need some kind of light in your room, make sure that it's very yellow or that it's very red. And something else that you can do if you're afraid of the dark is go into a forest when it's dark and realize that you're the most dangerous animal in there. This is even more obvious than the last point, but make sure that the environment you sleep in isn't very noisy, because noise wakes us up for survival reasons. If there's a loud noise, we associate that with danger, so you will wake up. Your ear canals and that entire system is active when you sleep, so that if you hear something, you wake up. So make sure that you put something in your ears if you have a loud neighborhood or a loud house that you live in, but if that's not the case, then just make sure that you don't have anything on in the background, really. So here's the thing. We can't discuss sleep quality without discussing air quality, because the thing is, you're breathing throughout the night, and whatever you breathe and how you breathe will affect your sleep quality. It's a very important factor. So let's look at these things that clean out the air. So first of all, we've got essential oil diffusers. These are bad. What they do with the fat is not good, and you shouldn't be breathing in those things. The byproducts are really bad. They hurt your lungs. Don't mess with any of that stuff. Your lungs want clean air. That's what they want, and they want oxygen. Don't give them any bullshit, please. And if you only put water in the essential oil diffuser thingy, it doesn't do anything, really. It just, you've got plastic components inside of the thing, and then you've got a lot of friction. So what happens is you're going to get plastic molecules coming out of the device, so you don't really want to be breathing in that. Then you've got standard air cleaners that use ozone and whatever it might be. These are toxic. They're bad because, again, it's the same thing as the diffuser. Whatever they put out is going to be bad because the machine itself is made out of toxic materials. It's not made out of leather and this and that. It's made out of plastic, and you don't want plastic in the air. These do more harm than good in many cases. What you do want is plants. Plants clean the air from pollutants, by the way, and they also convert the carbon dioxide that you let out into oxygen, so you're going to have a more oxygen-rich room, which is always a good thing. So fill your house with plants, or your room that you sleep in with plants, and you're going to clean out the air and you're going to get more oxygen, which is always a good thing. On the topic of air, you need to breathe through your nose. You can't be breathing through your mouth because you're going to mess yourself up physiologically. We need to breathe through our nose. If you don't, you're going to get many problems. As an example, you're going to lose more fluids much more rapidly. You're going to need to drink more water. You're going to lose water excessively, and you're going to get a dry mouth, and your brain won't get enough oxygen, and your face will fall apart. Mouth breathers are usually very unattractive, so please make sure that you're breathing through your nose. Make this a habit. Make sure that you never have an open mouth unless you're exercising very vigorously or you're speaking. And if you want to learn to nose breathe, then you can do two things, really. Be conscious during the day, of course. Be conscious of your breathing, and then during the night you can't really control breathing, really, because you're unconscious. So you have to tape your mouth. Tape your mouth, and that will force your body to breathe through the nose. And don't think that you'll suffocate. You won't suffocate, because if your body senses that you're not getting enough air, you'll wake up. and then you can just remove the thing, in case your nose is really, really blocked, but in general this won't really happen. You can also watch this video that I made about facial attractiveness, because it goes into nose breathing and how the jaw works, and how having the tongue at the roof of your mouth and having an attractive face is an indication of being able to breathe well. And if you don't do these things that I talk about in this video, your sleep will be affected heavily, because again, you're going to be blocking your airway. Now, I touched on this thing earlier, but it is winding down, and it has nothing to do with your sleep environment really, or it does if you're going to do some activity before bed in your room. But generally speaking, winding down is just decreasing your total energy output mentally and physically. That's what we're talking about here. You don't want to be doing boxing or a gym workout 1 hour before bed. 1 hour before bed, you should be maybe reading, or maybe listening to something. Maybe you should meditate. You can go for a walk even. That's not bad really, because it usually takes your mind off of things, and the physical activity isn't bad. You can always sleep after walking. And you could also take a warm shower. You could do all of these things that I mentioned earlier from a behavioral perspective. You can, do anything you want really that decreases or has a low amount of energy output. If you've made it this far, not only do you have a great attention span, not only do you have a great commitment to health, hopefully, I'm also happy to have you as a viewer. In fact, I'm not just happy, I am honored to have you as a viewer. And I want to say that the most important thing isn't just watching the video, watching the entire video and understanding everything. After understanding comes executing. You need to do all of these things. I want you to view the sun for 10 minutes every day in the morning. I want you to do these things. Seriously, I want you to have a dark environment before you go to bed. Okay, that's what I want you to do. I want you to actually do these things, because I know that they'll have such a big impact on your life. I'd just like to mention that I have a free PDF called the 10 Dietary Rules. It gives you the 10 dietary rules that make nutrition simple. It makes nutrition easy. It's not the truth, but it contains many truths that will help you along the way, that will make you understand nutrition on a deeper level. But if you want the truth about health, what health actually is, then read the 6 Health Commandments. It's a book that I've written, and there's more information on my website. And you'll find the links to both of these in the description. With that said, go and achieve excellent health. I know you can do it.